younger people, they!
Starring nacho fries in a performance that has critics craving. It'll change the way you look at fries, exclaims The Hollywood Reporter. $1 nacho fries, now serving at a Taco Bell near you.
At participating locations for a limited time, prices may vary, tax extra.
Whether you're making updates to existing properties or building new construction, Lowe's has savings for pros. Get up to 30% off appliance special values, including great brands like GE. That's up to 30% off washers, dryers, refrigerators, and more. Plus, save 5% on every purchase every day when you use your Lowe's Business Credit account. See the Lowe's Pro Desk for more details. Appliance offer valid 1/25 through 2/7. Credit offer subject to credit approval. Can't be combined with other credit offers. Exclusions apply. U.S. only.
Time to worry or not. Some economists say the lowest savings rate since 2005 in December, just $2.40 for every $100 earned, means Americans are relying too much on rising stock values for their savings. And we saw the same pattern just before the market crashes in the mid-2000s and the late 1990s. But other economists say the low savings rate in December might have just been related to the tax cut, increasing expectations of a windfall this year. They say if the savings rate stays in the twos through mid-year, then maybe worry, at least about a correction.
I hate taxes.
Sorry, Robert Cray, but it is that time of year again. This week marks the official start of the tax filing season.
The official tax deadline isn't until April 17th. That's because the usual deadline day, April 15th, falls on a Sunday this year. And the day after, April 16th, is a holiday in D.C., Emancipation Day. But it is recommended you try to file earlier than later. The sooner you file, the sooner you'll get any tax that you overpaid refunded.
All right, 1 minute.
Oh, the IRS money? You'll have no time.
Oh, just like you drew it up.
Filing early is also a way to try to prevent identity theft. Since you'll be getting your return in before the criminals
We're on air.
have a chance to send in a fraudulent
Hey,
one.
YouTube.
Sharon, NBC News Radio.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, watch your language, Jeff.
No,
The
Clyde.
news reports some lenders are offering mortgage rates at 4.5%, the highest
Just
rate
told you we're on air.
and it's 0.5% higher than the start of the year on the 30-year fixed. The increase is related to the sell-off in the bond market. Mortgages are tied to the 10-year bond,
Impressed, Jeff.
and the yield on that started the week above
damn maniac.
2.7% for the first time in almost 4 years. And the cars of the
He had to stop to pet the chickens on the way in.
will likely be a light color. Industry experts say self-driving cars can detect light colors better than dark colors.
Yeah,
so they can avoid
you got to
crashing
just
into
send
them.
Dave
But car makers are also adding more sensors that can
And then,
detect.
10 seconds.
And paint companies tell USA
I'll
Today
tell you
they're
some more
experimenting to see if adding flakes into dark-colored paint will make it more reflective. Consumer and business news. Joe McConnell, NBC News Radio.
Dunc and Holder on a Tuesday, January 30th. Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan, live in our NOLA.com Times-Picayune studios. As Jeff just threw Boogie face first down on the ground. Maybe he's depressed. He's got to play against Boogie's old team without Boogie tonight. Pelicans taking on the Kings, the Smoothie King Center tonight. Living life without Boogie Cousins still. And Jeff, we will have on our good buddy Juan Kincaid from WVUE, sports director. We'll have him on to talk about his thoughts on the loss, what happens with the Pelicans, and like our own Ron Higgins, who wrote about his experience with an Achilles tear, Juan Kincaid has dealt with an Achilles tear. So we will get, I know there are many of you out there who have dealt with this, but we'll get firsthand knowledge of just how strenuous it is to deal with an Achilles. And look, Juan is a very good athlete. He's not Boogie Cousins, but I would say Juan's probably got more athletic prowess than you and me. So we'll take what he has to say to heart as far as Achilles injuries.
Yeah, I think he knows the long road that Cousins is in for, probably better than most, and he'll have an opinion on whether the Pelicans can recover from this or not, what maybe they should do. In the wake of this injury, we saw a big trade yesterday in the NBA, Blake Griffin going to the Pistons. That could have an indirect or a direct effect on the Pelicans. There's a lot of mixed opinions about whether that sinks the Clippers or whether that buoys them. But certainly I think we're going to see the start of a lot of deals here as the trade deadline nears. And we'll find out a little more about the Pelicans against the Kings here in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, and as you talked about and we talked about yesterday, tonight is a must-win. Basically, you can't afford to have any slip-ups against teams that you originally anticipated you'd beat. Basically, anyone who's below you in the standings, you've got to beat. Like, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So we'll talk with Juan Kincaid about his thoughts on that. We'll also dissect that trade. A big trade. People are wondering, why couldn't they have traded him 2 days ago before the Clippers and Blake Griffin beat the Pelicans? But we'll give our thoughts on that trade. And Jeff, I know you voiced your thoughts on the trade yesterday on Twitter, that just because the big name went somewhere else, don't underestimate what the Clippers are getting. But the Clippers could be in full sell mode because the reports, Adrian Wojnarowski from ESPN also reporting that they're looking to deal DeAndre Jordan and Lou Williams, which basically means they're blowing this thing up. Even though they're on the verge of playoff potential, they're blowing it up. So if you want to take any kind of silver lining for the Pelicans, the fact that the 9 seed is blowing it up, that's probably a plus for you.
Well, what I've read about it is they don't want to consider themselves blowing it up. Now, I don't know how you would determine that, but they are not tanking, is what the executives have told reporters around the league. They want good young players in return, much like what they got for Blake Griffin. I mean, Tobias Harris and Avery Bradley combined are both starting caliber players that combined have more production than Blake Griffin. So that's the kind of thing they're looking for, getting his deal off the books, moving Jordan before, of course, he becomes a free agent. But they want something in return, and I've been asked by a number of readers if the Pelicans would have interest in DeAndre Jordan. I think they'd have interest, but what would they give up to get him? I mean, what would the Clippers want from the Pelicans? I think that's the better question.
Yeah, because they're not going to just take him for peanuts, because if you look at the Blake Griffin deal, and this is crazy, the Blake Griffin deal, and I know it's not exactly local, but it does tie into the Pelicans because they're all in the playoff hunt. But this is crazy. They were deeming him Mr. Clipper 5 months ago, and he's going to be the face of the franchise forever. And now they just traded him. What was his contract? $160 million around there?
Yeah,
that they just shipped
years.
out?
I mean, it's similar to the deal that DeMarcus Cousins would probably have gotten from the Pelicans if he did not get hurt. Now, I don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to max him out or not, but those deals are great to keep your stars intact, but on the back end of them, they become onerous, and that's one of the reasons why some of these players end up getting moved at the end. And I think the direction of the Clippers under Jerry West, he's been brought on as a consultant. Lawrence Frank is the new general manager. I think it's changed probably in that time. They realized they need to kind of go in a new direction, but they say that without blowing it up. That's the hard thing to do in the NBA. It's hard to not blow it up if you want to go in a new direction.
Especially if you're one off season letting Chris Paul walk away, and then 5 months later you're trading Blake Griffin, who is the face of that franchise.
Yep.
Honestly, and that's what they thought he would be back in July when they signed him to that mega deal. And Jeff, it's also, you see out there that the Clippers are also getting a first and second round pick from Detroit. And look, Detroit's not exactly lighting the house on fire right now, so maybe that first round pick could potentially help them. But they're speaking, as far as some of the national experts, by doing all of this and then maybe even unloading Lou Williams and DeAndre Jordan. Lou Williams is basically a hired gun. He's double-digit years in the league, and you want him for a scoring boost, and he's not a future of a franchise. But that the Clippers might be in the market for LeBron James this summer.
Right,
and
but he's not going to go there. I don't think he's going to
L.A.
I don't think he's going to go anywhere that he can't compete for an NBA title at this stage of his career. I think he's going to go somewhere. I think he's going to pull a Kevin Durant type move and fit in with a already bolstered team.
The Pelicans!
Maybe
do
he'll go to New
it!
Orleans.
Yeah! Pelicans, yes!
Don't hold your breath.
Oh.
But I think
I'm off the bandwagon again.
Well, we'll see.
I was on it for 10 seconds.
You could be back on it after the Kings game, because I think This is a game the Pelicans should win without Boogie Cousins.
I need to see how the Pelicans are. I'm basically on the bandwagon fence because, as we've talked about so many times all season long, I want to be on the bandwagon. Then they suck me in, and then I jump right back off, and I get back on. I'm extremely fair weather. What do you want me to do? They've been mediocre for so long. I need to be enticed to be interested, and I need to see what they're going to be doing the next, say, 10 games. You know, you get to the All-Star break, you get through the All-Star break, and you play a few more games. I need to see where they are at, say, the 60-game mark for me to say, all right, I think this team can be a playoff team. I just can't. I just don't see them. They lean so much on scoring. I don't see how they have enough scoring to overcome their already lack of defense. I just don't see it even against teams that are worse than them. I think they don't play defense well enough, and if they can't outscore teams, I think they're going to run into problems.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're a complete enough team to withstand the production loss that Cousins brought. And I wanted to read this to you real quick, and I know we got to go to break, but Bob Remy, the longtime New Orleans sports historian, longtime stat keeper for the Jazz, Pelicans, and the New Orleans Saints, sent me this, and I thought this was interesting. He said the Cousins injury reminded him of when Pete Maravich suffered his injury. It was the 77-78 season, so 40 years ago, almost exactly, January 31st, almost exactly.
Wow.
The Jazz were on a 9-game winning streak, like the Pelicans were 7 of 8 wins. The team had a winning record, 25-24. We're only 5 games out of first place, and the playoffs seemed like a sure thing. Although Pete would return to the lineup 7 weeks later, the team lost 19 of 33 games after he was injured. He hurt his right knee in that injury, and they never recovered. And then, you know, the team was filling up the seats. Everybody was on board with the Jazz. This devastating injury 40 years ago, almost to the day, to Pete Maravich derailed the Jazz. So I thought that was really interesting. There was the eerie similarity to the two injuries.
Yeah, that is eerie. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. It says the Jazz had a 21-point lead over the Buffalo Braves with only 4 minutes remaining when Maravich was injured. Pistol Pete returned to the lineup 7 weeks later, but the magic was gone. He would retire 2 years later. So
that
anyway.
Sounds uplifting.
Yeah, sorry. Bob Remy, though, only Bob Remy would know that stuff. I mean, can pull that out 40 years ago. He's one of the foremost historians, not only on the Jazz, but also on Pete Maravich's career.
Yeah, and now I'm going to stay off. I'm off the bandwagon.
Well,
I'm off.
Let's see what Juan has to say, because Juan went through this rehab, and I know he's not a professional athlete. I mean, DeMarcus Cousins is going to have the best care you can possibly get in his rehabilitation. But I have heard other people talking about this injury, the same thing you and I talked about yesterday, and that is what kind of shape's he going to be in? I mean, he's going to be basically laid up for a while, and he's a big man, and to come back, it's going to take him a while. And then what kind of ability is he going to have on that bad leg? Because when you tear your Achilles, and we'll hear from Juan about it, but I think it's pretty tough to get back to what you were before.
I've seen the comparisons of Elton Brand when he did it. He came back. He wasn't quite the same player. He was still a formidable player, but he was never really the same.
Right. Same with Wesley Matthews.
And so that's the concern. That's the multi-pronged concern that we discussed a lot on yesterday's show. But yeah, I'm mentioning I want to see what the Pelicans do, say, in the next 10 games. And you look at the schedule, and a lot of these games, especially if they would have had Boogie, I thought they would stay pat in the playoff race, and they would be somewhere between 6 because the schedule seems pretty favorable. You start tonight against Sacramento. Friday, you go at OKC. You have a back-to-back at OKC and at Minnesota. That's going to be a tough sledding regardless of whether you had him or not. So then you go have a homestand against the Jazz and the Pacers. Then Friday, February 9th, you're at Philadelphia, back-to-back at Brooklyn. Then the 12th at Detroit. Then you end the first half, well, technically a little bit more than the first half. But you go into the All-Star break, your final game.
A lot more in the first half.
Right. Your final game before the All-Star break would be Valentine's Day against the Lakers. And then you come back and you take on Miami basically 10 days later. So I feel like that stretch of games, you got to go 500 in that stretch of games leading up to the All-Star break. That's my look. If you go 500, that would keep you 5 games above 500. Can they do that? I'm not. I need to be convinced because I'm not totally sold they can do that at this point.
The one good thing about that stretch, a lot of Eastern Conference teams and the Pels have dominated the East, not only this year but historically in the last few years. No one can match up with Anthony Davis on most of these Eastern Conference teams. He's had huge nights against some of these teams, and just saw where John Wall is now out for like 6 weeks with an injury. They got Washington in that stretch?
Not in that stretch, no.
Unfortunately, so that would have helped them a little bit. But they do get the Pistons with Blake Griffin. We get him twice for 2 different teams.
We'll see what he brings in the next couple of weeks. But, yeah, so, look, I do think that trade does help the Pelicans. I don't think the Clippers are going to throw all these pieces together, and it seems like they're going to have more movable parts. And I do think that this trade actually helps the Pelicans. Now, where do they go, say, in the next week? Because the trade deadline is coming up next week. And so where do they go? I'm curious to see. I'm sure Dell Demps is going to be trying to do something. But I do think by just seeing that on the surface that the Clippers are ready to move and shake. And even though they say they're not tanking, and they might not necessarily be tanking because they're trying to bring in quality players, they're not going to be as cohesive and as potent a team going forward.
Shouldn't be. I mean, there should be a transition period. But Tobias Harris is a good player. I mean, he's averaging 18 points a game, I think, and Avery Bradley's averaging like 14 or 15. I mean, that's a lot. Two good starting caliber players. They're not as dynamic. They don't have as big a name as Blake Griffin, but production-wise, they actually have more production than Blake Griffin. So we'll see how it plays out. I like the move for the Clippers because they get Griffin's huge contract on the books, and Griffin's been injury-prone. I mean, he's had a bunch of injuries the last few years. So it's an interesting move, and Jerry West has done this in the past and pulled it off. So we'll see if this plays out. We won't know probably for another 2 months.
All right, so let's take a break right here on the show. In about 10 minutes or so, we'll talk with WVUE TV's Juan Kincaid, of course, the sports director over at Fox 8. Top of the 11 o'clock hour, we'll head out to the lakefront. We will talk with UNO AD Derek Morrell. Big stretch of games coming up for both the men's basketball team and the women's basketball team. Right now, the Privateers, Scott Schlesinger and his gang, guess what? They're back atop the Southland Conference. They're looking to make a second straight bid to the NCAA tournament. So we will get the update out on the lakefront on the 2 basketball teams and kind of the state of the program because, you know, a few years ago, I was basically writing their obit, and now they've kind of resurged, and now we're talking about NCAA tournaments and such, so they've kind of brought it back out of the lakefront. So we'll talk with him top of the 11 o'clock hour. And also, all the interesting sounds from opening night at Super Bowl 52. Brandon Cooks is as surly as ever, so we'll hear what he had to say. We'll also hear from Tom Brady, Nick Foles, and Malcolm Jenkins. Got sound bites from all of them, so you'll hear that throughout the show. So come on back, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeart Radio app for Duncan Holder. Brandon Cooks is a surly punk.
Well, Josh texted me about it. He said Brandon Cooks was ecstatic to see me until I started asking questions.
Yeah, because I'm just running the whole video he took.
That's Bills.
And then he runs in Sproles, and he sends me a text, Sprolesy, and then with a picture of him. And I was like, ask him if his wife still thinks that her Compton curse is what's killed the Saints. And he's like, he said, I can't tell if he's being serious.
Imagine
and then I can reread on the air the Compton curse.
Or the look on your daughter's face.
So yeah, so I got Stinchcomb Friday, I got Jermon Bushrod Wednesday.
Would be like if you couldn't
Jabari Greer sounded like he was up for it and then like just stopped communicating. And then I got Carl Nix's number. Do you want to shoot me Roman's number?
It's too late. Find an eye doctor today at ThinkAboutYourEyes.com. Sponsored by the American Optometric Association.
Blake Griffin's time with the Clippers has come to a shocking end.
So I was going to try to have
reporting
like
LA
one
is
guy
agreeing to trade Griffin to the
next
Pistons in a
days.
6-player swap, including Tobias Harris and Avery Bradley from Detroit. Draft picks also involved. Griffin signed a 5-year deal worth more than
I'm gonna have Josh on
$170
tomorrow and
this
Friday.
offseason. Super Bowl week is
You're gonna
officially
be on
underway.
Friday,
Kicked
right?
off with Super Bowl opening night on Monday at Excel Energy Center in St. Paul. The Patriots and Eagles took part in the circus formerly known as Media Day. New England quarterback Tom Brady.
This could never get old. This is pretty amazing. It's
30 seconds.
every year.
Ken
So
Trahan.
I remember when it just
I had
standing
Jabari
on the
Bird's
field,
number
you know, for
I
45
had him
minutes.
send it
But
to
now
me.
look at this. It's a big event.
Yeah.
Trading
And I
Pats
told
head
him
Coach Bill
we're good
Belichick
for
meet
like
with the media
February
again
20th,
today at the
which is
Mall
the
of
Hall of
America.
Fame.
The Eagles
Yeah,
will
what's the
follow.
name?
With Major League Baseball spring training now just 2 weeks away, Chief Wahoo is planning for retirement. The Indians say their contract
Not going to happen.
logo will be removed from team uniforms starting in 2019. At Sports, Jake Warwood, NBC News Radio.
Is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Welcome back, Duncan Holder. Today is going to be Jeff's last show until next Wednesday. He's flying the coop. I think he's just going on to Maui. I don't believe you're going to the Super Bowl.
Do you see what the weather's supposed to be like
No,
Thursday?
I'm not checking on the weather. I don't care. I'm not going.
It's -7 on Thursday when I get in.
Yeah,
And the high is supposed to be around 10 or 11 the rest of the week. So,
and you get to hang out at the Mall of America.
yeah, that's where the media, I think that's where the media center is. But Josh Katzenstein, our very own Saints beat reporter who got up there yesterday, said it was a really good setup, but I'm hearing
Cordell, Minnesota.
I'm hearing some other kind of stories about the logistics. I mean, they only have about 8,000 downtown hotel rooms, so almost everybody's out in Bloomington near the airport or in St. Paul. It's a lot like Indianapolis in that they don't have really the downtown hotel inventory to house all the corporate VIP clients. So people are going to be on shuttle buses everywhere. It's going to be real spread out, and that's what the Super Bowl has become. That's why New Orleans is such a great Super Bowl site. You don't have to worry about that.
Well, maybe one day the Super Bowl will return. But let's head up to Minnesota. 504-260-1280 is the number to get involved. Cordell in Minnesota. Cordell, thanks for calling Duncan Holder. You shipping around any media folks? You picked up like Joe Montana? You shuttling him around this week?
Actually, believe it or not, I did have the opportunity to my church, a lady that goes to my church. She's a head of one of the welcoming committees.
Okay.
And so they was in need for 6 drivers to haul people around. But I passed on it. But yeah, so yeah, I had the opportunity to.
Well, if you were shuttling around,
I was wondering.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering, talking about the Boogie Cousins injury. He had the Achilles injury, and so I was thinking about when didn't Kobe Bryant have the same injury?
Yes, he did.
I kind of remember, you know, it being a big thing. He had this like a documentary showing his comeback and stuff like that. I know Boogie has a different skill set than Kobe. So I was wondering. I mean, I wonder, you know, if you know who's his doctor. I wonder if he could, you know, reach out to Kobe's doctor, or have he reached out to other players that had the same type of injury that possibly came back. You know, Kobe wasn't 100% himself when he came back after that, but he was pretty. I mean, I just remember his last game was amazing. So I don't know.
Hey, Cordell, appreciate the phone call as always. I'm sure they're going to be reaching out to everyone humanly possible to get Boogie back on the court. And I think he would admit it. I'm sure, Jeff, you would agree that he was having his best season of his NBA career. I would think.
Yeah. Well, one of the best for sure. One of the best. I mean, he's had higher like efficiency ratings because he's not shooting that well from the field, and also the turnovers. He was leading the league in turnovers and fouls. So neither one of those are great
Ignore those stats.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got the most wins of his career
No
this
doubt.
season.
Well, I think there's a little ominous tone to what Elton Brand said. Elton Brand, of course, you mentioned earlier, he tore his Achilles before the 07-08 season. Here's what he said about his Achilles. He said, that Achilles changed the trajectory of my career. That whole kinetic chain, once you get the calf, it's the ankle, the knee, the hips, the back. No one's really recovered from that Achilles injury and come back at the same level. That was really frustrating because I wanted to give Philly more. We made it to the playoffs. I did okay. I had a few more serviceable seasons, but I wasn't the same guy. I had atrophy in my left calf, and that spread up to my power leg from that Achilles.
I'm depressed again.
It's tough. I mean, he probably had some of the best people working with him, I'm sure, as a professional athlete. They got so much invested. So, it's a difficult injury to come back from for a number of reasons. And I was just looking at his stats. Before the injury, Elton Brand was averaging like 20 to, I think his last year before the injury, he averaged 17.6 points. He never averaged over 13.8 after that. So, yes, there is a drop-off.
So the Pelicans are certainly going to have to examine this,
right,
in what they do. If just seeing that alone, that one person alone who similar build, maybe not as tall, but Elton Brand, of course, is a power forward. I would be very skeptical in giving Boogie Cousins a massive contract. You can't do it. You can't.
And how do you weigh in the fact that Dell Demps and Alvin Gentry are both on expiring contracts themselves? I mean, they're done. And if you're the ownership and management, do you allow them to make a deal like that could handcuff the franchise? That's why I think this whole next few months is going to be fascinating, because the organization's at a crossroads.
No question about it. Why don't we take a break right here on the show, continue this conversation with Juan Kincaid, WVUE TV sports director, of course, over at Fox 8. We'll talk with him about that, how he dealt with an Achilles injury, how long it took him to return. Juan Kincaid, the all-star soccer player, and also he's very good in the media football games. He's a kind of a bear to defend. I don't like it.
It's like a tight end kind of.
Yeah, he's got a little speed to him, got a little muscle too. I can't deal with him. I'm just a stick. I'm good with a serve and a forehand and a volley. That's all I got. Come on. I can't deal with that. Get me out of here. So we'll talk with Juan coming up next here. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder.
Mary Moon. Your forecast on.
All right, I'm calling Juan, huh?
Yes. Oh, you need that? I guess you do.
No, he's got Juan's number.
Okay, I got to give it to Derek.
Derek's.
I'll forward you Derek's number.
Happy Tuesday from the Fox 8 Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. A sunny and cooler day is on tap, with temperatures only getting into the low 50s this afternoon. With clear skies tonight, we'll drop those temperatures once again. And tomorrow morning, you could be waking up near the freezing mark on the North Shore and in the upper 30s on the South Shore. From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. Have a great day.
Together with Mike Rowe, 1 Hour encourages you to choose licensed technicians to service your home.
Yeah,
Call
no,
1 Hour
it's,
today.
yeah, I was actually
855 1 Hour.
For over 80 years, in the heart of Mid-City, where it's always been, is a New Orleans tradition, Mandina's Restaurant. Come in for some New Orleans staples, old-style New Orleans food, atmosphere, and some of the best seafood in the city. Always New Orleans, always the best, always Mandina's.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
1 minute and we got one.
Encouraging.
Imagine the orange glow of a sunset over the ocean. Or the look on your daughter's face when she met her new baby brother.
Oh, yeah, about the
Now
other stuff.
imagine what these moments would be like if you
That was
couldn't
actually
see them.
surprising.
Sight is a
Surprising
gift,
to me.
one that serious eye diseases could compromise. But yearly exams from an eye doctor can detect them before it's too late.
I was surprised.
Find an eye doctor today at thinkaboutyouryeyes.com. Sponsored by the American Optometric Association.
Howdy, folks. Colonel Sanders here to tell you about KFC's $10 chicken shares. They're perfect to share with those special people in your life. Choose from 6 pieces of my Kentucky Fried Chicken, 9 extra crispy tenders, 12 hot wings, or a bunch of popcorn nuggets. So grab your buddy, your cousin.
Sound in
Your
hour
toiletry
2.
made on my friend Joan and head to KFC. Are you there yet? Okay, good. Now get to sharing and eating. KFC's $10 chicken shares. It's finger licking good.
At participating KFCs only. Hot wings not available at all locations. Prices may vary. Tax and substitutions extra.
Whether you bless those boys or take flight, we're talking your teams. Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Welcome back, Duncan Holder. Pleased to be joined by Juan Kincaid, sports director, WVUE TV, Fox 8. Longtime New Orleans sports personality. Hello, Juan. How are you, my friend?
Lawrence, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I am not dealing with an Achilles injury. You've dealt with an Achilles injury. You and Boogie have something in common. I know that's one of the reasons why Jeff wanted you to come on today. Basically, I know many people have had this injury. I have not, thankfully. But what are some of the rigors that you go through just getting through something like this?
Well, I mean, early on, you are pretty much immobilized. You can't do a lot. I know for the first 4 weeks, and I ruptured my Achilles in April of 2016. And it took me a full year, basically, to start running normal as far as back on the track, on the treadmill, playing about a year and a half to play soccer again. So it takes some patience. Now, the difference between, obviously, me and Boogie Cousins and the treatment-wise is that he'll be receiving around-the-clock treatment, 24 hours a day pretty much, 7 days a week at the facility there. So, and he's obviously an athlete, a professional athlete, so he'll recover probably quicker from it. But then you have the mental side of it. You've got to be able to trust that ankle is going to be, Achilles is going to be okay. And my doctors kept telling me, and I had the exact same doctor that Boogie will have, Misty Suri and Derek Jones at Oshner. So I had the same medical staff that he's going to have. And they would tell me that, the Achilles is stronger now than it ever has been before. But they also put that little bug in the back of your ears that, be careful of the other Achilles. Because if this one went, the other one could go as well. So that was always in the back of my mind about, being careful and wondering about if I don't stretch it well enough, could I pop the other Achilles? And it still is in the back of my mind. Here we are almost 2 years removed from that. So a lot of, yes, you get over the physical part of it, but then you got to get over the mental part of it and realize that once it's healed, but you got to get back to learning how to basically run full speed again. It's a process. It really is.
Juan, we've read a lot of stories here in the last 48 hours or so from other athletes. We just read some comments from Elton Brand, who never really recovered from his Achilles tendon. I mean, he came back and averaged about 13 a game, but he wasn't the same player. Wesley Matthews has talked about it. Why is that injury so devastating? Why is it so hard to come back? Is it mostly the mental, or is it the combination of mental and physical? Do you lose the physical explosion maybe that you had in that leg before the injury?
Absolutely, you do. You do lose the explosion. Now, again, Boogie's a close to 30-year-old kid, basically, and I'm almost 50 years old, and so you have to factor that in as well. But the one thing I noticed when I got back to running again, I don't have that immediate burst anymore, that explosion. And again, part of it is my age, but still, you lose that. And I know every professional athlete's different, Jeff, but you never realize how important your Achilles is to everything you do athletically until you've lost it. And for me, the Achilles came detached from the lower part of my calf. They had to it was ruptured. They had to basically pull it and stretch it and get it back to the calf again. And I've got you can see the scar on the back of my Achilles. There's a knot there. That knot will forever be there. And so I feel it. I have a tingling sensation inside of my foot that may always be there. It's just, it's physical and mental, but the physical part of it is it's hard to imagine coming back from that injury and being the same player he was before. We're not saying Boogie was jumping out of the gym, but he was an explosive big man, and he will lose some of that. And he'll have to deal with and compensate for that. Now, he's a skilled basketball player, and you know what they say, you can't teach size. So because of that, he'll still get big money in the NBA, but I don't think he'll ever be a max contract guy again because his explosion is not going to be what it once was.
Juan Kincaid, WVUE TV sports director, Fox 8, joining us right here on Dunc and Holder.
around them. Now, when they had Boogie and AD on the court, you could compensate because you're getting 70, 80 points out of those two guys per night. And Drew's adding 20 here, and obviously they're opening up the floor for Etwan Moore and Dante Cunningham. But if those guys aren't going to knock down shots, this is a basic basketball team that will not make the playoffs. And I think everybody understands that. They've got some deficiencies. They've always had them. They don't play as good a defense as this basketball team should play with two rim stoppers down low. They just are not a good outside shooting basketball team. They're too streaky, and not streaky enough to where they're going to make the playoffs. I just think it's going to be a real struggle for them unless they can figure out how to play better basketball in the third quarter. There's no way they should have lost that game against the Clippers the other day. You're up by 20 at one point, and you're up by 11 at the half, but you can't finish the games in the third quarter, and all of a sudden you're fighting back. So I think his team has some issues. They were masked a lot by having AD and Boogie on the low block because they got double-teamed all the time and guys got open shots. Now these guys aren't going to get as many open shots. And the ones they're going to get, they have to knock them down, and I'm not sure they can do that.
Juan, I'm curious, where were you at when Cousins went down, and what was your immediate thought when you heard it was the Achilles?
Well, listen, I was watching it on television at the office, Jeff, and I knew it was the Achilles before they even said it because I could tell the way he got up. Because I ruptured my Achilles at a flag football game inside the Saints facility, and I knew exactly what it was when it happened. It popped, and people across the field heard it pop. And I knew. It's like a numbing feeling. Your foot goes dead, and you can walk, but you can't walk. It's like you can walk, but you're afraid to put pressure on it. When I saw him go down to the ground, when I saw him stand up and then go back down, I was like, it's his Achilles. You could tell because it's almost a disbelief look on his face. Like, what's going on here? I can't move my legs. Nothing's working here. I knew exactly what it was. It was exactly. I felt like I was looking at myself in a mirror when I saw it, and I thought, he's going to be out for the year. And you wonder. It's really the sad part of it is you got a guy that's never made the playoffs before, who's playing his most minutes of his career, who's having a great season, who's finally found a place that accepts him, and he's comfortable here. He's about to make the playoffs, and then this happens. He's in a contract year, and then this happens. And now his entire basketball life may change, and not necessarily for the better for him. So I really feel for him because he's finally got an opportunity to make the playoffs, which he's never been able to do. People have called him a cancer. He's been able to work it out here, even though he's had some distractions on the court. But his team has finally gotten a hold of some good basketball playing, and then this happens. So I could see myself in Boogie when it happened. I just knew what it was before they even announced what it was, just by the way they were helping him off the court. I guess it's Achilles. You can't put any pressure on it. And you can put pressure on, but you just cannot. You can step down, but you can't step up, if that makes any sense.
Juan Kincaid, sports director, WVUE TV, Fox 8, joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan here with you. If you're the Pelicans, what do you do with Boogie?
Well, I don't think they can trade him because they have to pass a physical to get a trade to go through. So I don't know what his trade value is right now because every NBA team out there is going to say, you know what, he's going to be a 1 or 2 year guy. We're going to see how his body's going to respond after the surgery, after the rehab, especially the rehab. What kind of player is he going to be? And again, you can't teach size, so he's always going to have that size. He's always going to have that scoring touch. But will he have his explosiveness anymore? Will he have that anymore? That's the big question. So, could some teams say, you know what, we'll take his expiring contract? Sure, they could do that. That would be the only way I could see the Pelicans trading him, but you're not going to get anywhere near the value of DeMarcus Cousins anymore. It's just not going to happen, at least not for 2 years, and you can see how the rehab comes out. So they're kind of in a pickle. They've got the bad contract of Omer Asik still on the books. They've got this thing with DeMarcus Cousins now, and it's a tough call for Dell Demps. I would love to be in his head right now and figure out what he's going to do because he's got to address the problem of a decent basketball team that's trying to make the playoff push right now without DeMarcus Cousins. And then he also has to think about the future of the franchise and his future as GM and Alvin's future as head coach because I think all of these are linked to this team making the playoffs this year and what goes on beyond. So it's a tough call.
And Juan, just real quick, switching gears from this, because this is obviously the story of the week in New Orleans sports, but I'm curious, we haven't talked to you since the Saints season ended. Now that we've kind of removed ourselves from that, What did you think of the ending, and what did you think of the season overall? I mean, obviously kind of a bittersweet ending to a remarkable season.
The ending stunk. I mean, it really did. I mean, and I had someone stop me in the grocery store yesterday, and he goes, Juan, listen, that play by Marcus at the end, do you think he tanked it? And I understand fans' feeling of that, but I don't believe so. I think this kid, I think he wanted to pull up and not get a pass interference call, which would have given him an extra play for a field goal, blah, blah, blah. But it was a really difficult way to see this team lose a game that you saw. There's no way they could lose this game. Knock it down, whatever. But on the whole, you got to be proud of what this team did this year, because they start 0-2 for the fourth straight year, something like that, and they end up rallying off 8 straight wins to make the playoffs. Everyone's chasing them all year long in the division. They win the. I mean, the things they accomplished this year, and we didn't expect it. So that was a positive. So and a lot of it's done because you have a lot of guys that are first and second year players that have contributed to this football team mightily this year. I think next year it's going to be tougher. The schedule's going to be more difficult. But I think if they can continue to get another good draft class and address some needs and get Drew Brees signed for 2 more years, I think you can keep this train going a little bit longer until it's time to say goodbye to Brees and then move on to the next quarterback. But I think it was a fantastic year. I have no complaints about the season. I can complain about how it ended because you didn't expect that, because they had it in their hands and it was taken away. That's disappointing. But on the whole, this was a great football season. I enjoyed it.
Juan Kincaid, WVUE-TV, Fox 8 Sports Director. Hey, Juan, appreciate the time as always, my friend. Good talking to you.
Guys, pleasure. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks, Juan.
That's Juan Kincaid. And just to kind of piggyback off of one of the questions I asked about what do you do in the future, look, do I expect DeMarcus Cousins to be traded? No, I don't foresee a team doing that. Can he be traded? Yeah, you could trade him. Even though he's injured, you could still trade him. I mean, people would get traded
all the time.
It's just a matter
of who would want him.
Who would want to take on an expiring contract just for such a short period of time, that sort of thing. And you probably wouldn't be trading him or acquiring him if you're another team, banking on, boy, we're going to re-sign him, because you don't know the future. So it would be basically a money move if you did it, and you're able to do that. But I think that the Pelicans, they're in such a bizarre, wild place, because you already were going to have the questions of, do you retain Dell Demps and do you retain Alvin Gentry regardless of DeMarcus Cousins? Now there's an injury. Now there's an embedded excuse. What do you do? And, oh, by the way, do you bring back DeMarcus Cousins? I mean, and it was a no-brainer before in their eyes. Now questions aplenty everywhere.
Yeah, knowing Mickey Loomis, I think he keeps status quo. I really do. I'll be surprised if they make big changes, but I think he will evaluate how they finish the season here. Well, they have about 30 games left, I think. I think he's going to evaluate very harshly how this team responds, and in that evaluation will be Alvin Gentry and maybe Dell Demps, but mainly Alvin Gentry, because this is going to come down to coaching, how they respond, how they recover, how they adjust. And so far, it's early. 0-1.
Right, 0-1. Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to put that on them one game in. How do the players play? How are they gonna stick together and rally around this and kind of become bonded, or are they gonna splinter and eventually the losing takes its course? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. It's going to be a fascinating deal. It would have been fascinating even with them going forward on a winning streak. Now it's far more fascinating for a far different reason. So why don't we take a break right here on the show? When we get back, let's talk a little college basketball. Because, look, top 11 o'clock hour, we're going to talk with UNO AD Derek Morrell about the Privateers, men's basketball team atop the Southland Conference. The women's team is doing very well in Southland as well. But, look, yesterday, Will Wade dropping the hammer on some players, throwing 2 kids off the team, suspending 2 others, heading into Tennessee tomorrow night. Big game for them. Tulane's also got a big matchup at East Carolina on Wednesday. UNO plays Wednesday as well, so we'll touch on a little college basketball when we get back here. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. I'm Duncan Holder.
Clyde would like that song.
You can go out to a parade and
Hey, I forgot. We got Pelicans tickets.
Okay.
All right.
listen to the crew.
For
They are for the February 5th game versus the Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz. Not Jazz.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just looking at John Beshfloat from Crew de Vue.
Josh. Oh God.
Ones that Jeff was showing me.
Oh, I missed that. I didn't see that.
Yeah, they were classic, of course.
How about your award-winning?
They changed the spelling of jazz brunch to something else brunch.
Oh wait, we've got
that
to
is
turn that on.
that is horrid.
Turn what on?
I don't
that
have
on?
to brag about the food at Katie's.
Turn
The
what
food
on?
speaks
Oh
for
yeah, you
itself.
turned it on.
Katie's
No,
open
Clyde
7
did.
Okay.
Like,
Panic. The first one that was on the page
I'm
did not
pretty
have.
sure that our YouTube listeners have gotten used to our, borderline profanities.
Oh yeah.
Straight talk.
Or just
Borderline. There's no
actual
borderline.
profanity.
Straight up.
Yeah, you drop F-bombs.
I know.
Dirty.
So February 5th versus the Jazz.
Yeah, February 5th versus the Jazz.
All right. We'll
Only
do
from
keyword
Straight Talk
here.
Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Sure.
Yeah.
Quickly streams at TV.
Keyword, Besh.
I needed a $2,500 loan to cover some expenses, so I went to the A-team at Avant.com. Applying was easy, and I was approved quickly through Avant.com. Promo code RADIO. Avant.com, promo code RADIO. Credit products are made by WebBank. Other restrictions apply. See website for details.
WhatsApp is catching a ride on Apple's CarPlay. The messaging app will now automatically show up as an app when your iPhone is connected to Apple's automotive platform. More and more major automakers are allowing Apple to take over the main car radio display unit, where you can see an unread message in WhatsApp, have Siri read out received messages, and then send new ones through dictation. Airbnb is expanding its experiences. The feature that provides activities for tourists in addition to a place to stay is now available in 50 cities around the world. 4,000 experiences in all, which range from surfing trips in LA to nature photography in Nairobi to samurai sword training in Japan. The state of New York is opening an investigation into a firm that allegedly sold millions of fake followers to social media users.
And when are we going to do the audio from the media thing? I got a fun little story on that too. Whenever we do it, the media night or whatever.
Hour or two.
Yeah, perfect. Apparently, the craziness at media night started in New Orleans in '75. I got an anecdote about it.
People the most.
Kind of cool, the history.
Yeah.
A tent, a sandbag, a doctor. Actually, if you send a monetary donation, you send all these things. Even a small donation can make a big impact and can quickly become exactly what people affected by disaster need most.
In the wake of a hurricane, your monetary donation can make a huge difference to those in need. To donate, visit supporthurricanerelief.org. That's supporthurricanerelief.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Dave's bringing back Torture Tuesday.
I like it.
Yes. Marilyn Manson. Jeff hangs out with Marilyn Manson on the weekend. No doubt about it.
That's a he, right?
That is a he. Sometimes doesn't he implant things sometimes?
Yeah, lots of weirdness happens there.
Marilyn's his own kind of person, I
He'd
guess.
probably fit in well with Crew de Vue. You mentioned Crew de Vue earlier.
Yes. He'd be the king/queen, whatever. I don't know. Depends on the day what he wants to be. Yes.
Crew of Delusion.
He's Pat from Saturday Night Live.
Androgynous Pat.
Yes, exactly. So, all right, we got some Pelicans tickets to give away. February 5th against the Utah Jazz. We're not going to mix it up. We'll give you a keyword. We'll ask for it in hour number 2. What the keyword is, you be the first one to call in with the keyword, 504-260-1280. In hour number 2, when we ask for it, you will receive a pair of tickets against the Jazz. That will be a big-time matchup. Jazz are right in the thick of the playoff hunt with the Pelicans. Jeff, I always put this on you. What is the keyword for the Pelicans tickets?
How about Denmark? And there's a reason I'm using that word.
Denmark. Okay.
Yes.
Denmark. We'll talk about that actually in hour number 2 because our own buddy Morten Anderson was honored in Denmark. Jeff wrote the story for being the Pro Football Hall of Famer. his hometown honored him, and right on cue, he got to take it to the top. And yesterday, I was showing Jeff some pictures on the internet that somehow, some way, for an unknown reason, the Morton Anderson beefcake poster was floating around on the internet.
Yeah, why was that?
I
Did you
have
ever
no
find out
idea.
why?
No.
Other than it's awesome.
Break in y'all's studios?
I was about to say, we still have the posters. Don't we have them in
I
here?
took them to Morton, and I think he's still got them.
You gave them to him.
Yes.
He's going to keep them forever.
He was going to. You remember, I met him down when he was at the Saints game when he got his jacket at the ceremony. He was in the Saints Hall of Fame at the Superdome, left the posters with him to sign. He said he'd sign and bring them up, and I never saw him again.
You'll never see the posters again.
Yeah, but I respect that Morton will get them back to me, but I don't. He's got to get them back to me.
Morton, you're on the spot.
Yes.
We need our posters back. We need our beefcake posters.
I was hopeful. I texted him because I wanted to see if he was going to be at the Hall of Fame this weekend up in Minneapolis. You know, we go through the selection process, and a lot of the former players come back. But when I texted him, I never heard from him. Now I know he was over in Denmark getting honored in Struer, Denmark. Got a little street named after him. Had I think 2 plaques now put up in City Hall in his honor with the logistics of Struer and Canton, Ohio. I mean, really some cool stuff. A lot of people came out to see him and honor him. And David Baker from the Hall of Fame went all the way over there to speak at the ceremony. Cool stuff.
Tough life for Dave Baker. I always wonder, though, how he fits on a plane because he's the largest human being on planet Earth.
That's a good point. He has to be first class.
Has to be. Absolutely.
I mean, he literally might be the largest person. I never was near Andre the Giant. You would know that, wrestling.
I've never been near Andre the Giant.
But he's probably bigger than Dave Baker.
The largest human being I've ever been around, I would have to say, was Yao Ming.
Oh, yeah, he's massive.
Back when I was working in the Houston market, this is, 15 years ago, covering some Rockets games, and Yao Ming, pretty massive human being at 7'6", and he wasn't like a twig like Manute Bol. Like he actually had kind of some thick legs. And yes, Yao Ming, just putting a recorder up to Yao Ming, you can't reach his mouth. Like, you can't reach it. He's so tall, gigantic. He makes Shaq look small. Seriously.
Well, yeah, when I was around him at the All-Star game, I remember thinking he's obviously just some kind of freak of nature, human. There was some kind of glandular or genetic mutation.
Basically like Secretariat. We were talking about that at lunch yesterday. Secretariat, you were saying how when he went to go stud, back, we're hopping topics, but you were talking about how gun runners are going to be studding for life or
3 times a day.
But Secretariat never replaced.
Living the good life.
Get those horses out of the damn studio.
Gun runners living the good life.
Is that the horse that gets?
That was Gun Runner. We've interviewed him about his future studdom.
You sure that wasn't the horse that when they shot the blanks in Dean and Wormer's office and the horse just pieced out? You sure it's not that horse?
It might be. I don't know.
There were blanks in that gun.
Why the long face?
Exactly. There were blanks. There's our blanks.
Holy.
Yeah. Whoa!
Yes, that was a classic scene. But
I don't know where this conversation.
Yeah. How do we get on to the
Yao Ming
genetic
Yao
mutation
Ming,
that is
genetic freaks.
Yao Ming?
Yes.
He was massive. He made other NBA players look tiny.
Absolutely.
Yeah, George Murison, that was back in the day. He was a big kind of massive freak guy.
Him, Sean Bradley.
Yeah, Sean Bradley. That's right. I forgot about.
But they were all those guys were like gangly. Like Yao Ming was just a massive, tall,
big head.
Yeah,
had a big old huge head.
Yeah,
everything was big.
Well, yeah,
everything. Yeah, he was definitely. I forgot about him. He was a big dude in a different way, but locally is Zach Strief. He's like a big refrigerator or something. When you interview him, he's a massive guy. You forget how tall he is. What is he, like 6'5", something like 6'6"?
He's taller than that. He might be 6'7".
6'7", and just wide. I mean, you think there's no way anybody's going to get around this guy. He's athletic. I mean, he's one of the biggest guys. I remember he might be the biggest Saints player I've ever been around, just in terms of human mass.
I have to think. Maybe so.
Shawn Rogers was a massive dude. Do you remember Shawn Rogers?
Yeah, he was. Well, he was not as tall, obviously.
No, but he was pretty tall. He was about 6'5" or something.
Yeah.
For a defensive tackle, he was huge. And I remember him struggling to get through sprints at in training camp. That's one my memory. Not as bad as Andres Pete the first year. My God.
1 minute.
But he struggled.
Andres Pete, he still struggles. Come on, he's not exactly Mr. Olympia.
No, he's not like Drew Brees out there winning the sprint every day.
Trying to win, yes.
Ted Ginn Jr. was one of the leaders, and Morstead's one of those try-hard guys every time.
Absolutely. So I have no idea that segment just derailed quickly. I don't know. It morphed into a
riff.
Yes, exactly.
say.
So hour number 1 is up. Hour number 2 is on the way. We will talk with UNO Athletic Director Derek Morrell. He will come on and talk about the success of the UNO men's and women's basketball team. Big week for both programs. Both the men's program, top of the Southland Conference. Of course, Mark Schlesinger doing an awesome job out there. And the women's team is 7-3 in conference, so we'll talk with him about that next. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Duncan Holder. I know a guy named Scott Schlesinger. That's why I said that.
I was going to say, yeah. It just...
British
tabloid.
I think
Volbeat. Man, I tell you what, I'd
Volbeat,
never heard of that
baby.
until we had Anderson on, man.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of them before.
I never did either. When he would tell me about him,
Police departments
like when I did a column about him posing for his bust, and he's like,
the practice of
yeah, I played Volbeat for the sculptor. I'm like, how does a sculptor concentrate with Volbeat
right?
blasting?
Yeah. Gets him in the zone.
Yeah, it was a fun. That was a fun column, right?
To cure other conditions too, including cancer and Parkinson's. Well, we all know the old saying, "An apple a day keeps the doctor away." Well, apparently you can substitute banana for apple. Vitamin B6 in apples has been.
Yeah, I was gonna tell y'all, like, the biggest dude I got to meet was Lou Ferrigno, man. That dude.
Oh yeah,
he's
his
massive.
arms are just insanely thick.
Oh yeah.
And I met him like 10 years ago when he was still pretty much in shape. I mean, he's gotten older now. Not that he's not in shape now. But
right.
Listen on the free iHeartRadio.
He was a Hulk of a man.
Waka waka.
Waka waka.
Sports trending now.
John Wall is expected to be out 6 weeks. That, according to the Washington Post, the Wizard star will undergo a cleanup procedure on his left.
Oh, I don't have.
Oh yeah.
You didn't get
The
Derek's
span
thing?
includes the All-Star game. Meanwhile, the Clippers
I
have
forwarded an email.
Oh, here it is. I see it.
You got it's like a
exchange for
337
Avery
number, I
Bradley,
think.
Tobias Harris, Boban Marjanovic, and first and second round pick. Clippers are also sending Bryce Johnson and Willie Reed to.
All right, when am I calling him?
11:05.
Okay, right at the gate. Okay.
Yeah, a couple minutes.
Yeah, a few minutes.
Since last February when he tore the ACL in his left knee. NFL
Actually,
News, the
UNO's
LA
women's team
Coliseum
has
has
won
sold
5 in a
its
row.
naming
No,
rights
that's
for
what
16
Adam was
years,
telling about yesterday. We got to ask
$69
Derek
million.
about that.
So the
They
iconic
like didn't win
stadium
a
will now be
game.
known as
Remember a few
United
years ago?
Airlines
They were like
Memorial
0-.
Coliseum. That actually begins August of 2019. I'm Deb Carson.
They've won 5 in a row. They're 7-3 in the conference.
Try LendUp.com. Apply in minutes on your phone or computer, and you could have cash in your account fast. LendUp.com, the better payday loan. LendUp.com. Subject to availability in your state. LendUp is a licensed credit services organization, not a direct lender, in Ohio and Texas.
Mr. Red's Seafood and Italian Restaurant, serving the best
Yeah, they
fried
play
chicken in
Northwestern
town. Fresh Louisiana seafood,
tonight.
as well as
No,
delicious
tomorrow night,
Italian
and then they
dishes.
play
Try our
Nichols
daily chef
Saturday.
That's the big one.
Our
Nichols,
overstuffed
because yeah,
pork,
Nichols is
open
7 and
Monday
2.
through Saturday from 11 a.m. till 9 p.m. with
Nichols,
2 locations
Southeastern
to
are
serve.
7
in
and
Bucktown
2.
at 1001 Live Oak between Bonneville and Lake Avenue, or in Kenner at 910 West Esplanade at Chateau Boulevard. Let Mr. Ed's cater your next event. Mr. Ed's Seafood and Italian Restaurant. 2 great locations, 1 great menu.
Jeez,
Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar
Stephen
and
F.
Fish House,
Austin, I
now
forgot
open in the
about that.
core 7 days a week at 512
Stephen
p.m.
F. Austin, 17 and 4.
Time to worry or
in
not.
their,
Some economists say the lowest
overall.
savings rate since 2005 in December.
Yeah, they're
They made
pretty
the
good.
tournament last year,
$0.40 for every $100 earned
They beat
means
LSU.
Americans are relying
I'll
too
actually
much
watch
on
that
rising
game.
stock values for their savings. And we saw the same pattern just before the market crashes in the mid-2000s and the late 1990s. But other economists say the low savings rate in December might have just been related to the tax cut, increasing expectations of a windfall this year. They say if the savings rate stays in the 2s through mid-year, then maybe worry, at least about a correction.
I hate taxes.
Sorry, Robert Cray, but it is that time of year again. This week marks the official start of the tax filing season.
The official tax deadline isn't until April 17th.
That's because the usual deadline day, April 15th, falls on a Sunday this year, and the day after, April 16th, is a holiday in D.C., Emancipation Day. But it is recommended you try to file earlier than later. The sooner you file, the sooner you'll get any tax that you overpaid refunded. And if you owe the IRS money, you'll have more time to come up with the cash. Experts point out filing early is also a way to try to prevent identity theft, since you'll be getting your return in before the criminals have a chance to send in a fraudulent one. Sharon Reed, NBC News Radio.
Mortgage rates keep ticking up. The website Mortgage Daily News reports some lenders are offering mortgage rates at 4.5%, the highest rate since 2014, and it's 0.5% higher than the start of the year on the 30-year fixed. The increase is related to the sell-off in the bond market. Mortgages are tied to the 10-year bond, and the yield on that started the week above 2.7% for the first time in almost 4 years. And the cars of the future, especially self-driving cars, will likely be a light color. Industry experts say self-driving cars can detect light colors better than dark ones, so they can avoid crashing into them. But car makers are also adding more sensors that can detect darker colors. And paint companies tell USA Today they're experimenting to see if adding flakes into dark-colored paint will make it more reflective. Consumer and business news. Joe McConnell, NBC News Radio.
I met someone. You hear it a lot from people on Match, because more people have met their someone on Match than any other dating app. Everyone wants to find that meaningful connection, and Match is not only #1 in first, but second dates too. Now here's a free offer for our listeners. Go to Match.com/single for 7 days free. That's 7 days completely free to search, view photos, and connect. This free offer is found at Match.com/single. That's Match.com/single. Match.com/single.
Josh Innes, morning 6 to 10 on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
One of the reporters in that story we were playing is a gal from Philly. Like, you heard her accent and you go, oh, God, she was pretty until...
All right, we got him.
All right, great.
She's a pretty gal. Yeah. And then you listen to her talk, and she's got the Philly accent bow. The word.
Talk about a boner killer.
So you go to a restaurant, the girl's kind of cute, you know? And she's like, yeah, use one of woulda. Like, huh? First time that ever.
It's so funny. I'm trying to find Phil from his show, and today he just went on Chief Wahoo from
I
Indians.
listen for a minute.
So I pulled some of that stuff. So stupid, but it's funny.
Yeah.
Hey, use one of woulda. Huh? You don't use one of water.
I think that was it Hooters that happened? Like, the chick was actually really hot.
And then she comes over. I mean, and like, you talk about boner killer.
Josh Innes, morning 6 to 10.
I'm so easily amused.
Oh, boy.
You wanted to be a teacher when you were little, but you...
All right, 10 seconds.
All right.
Well, it's time to put it back on your list.
And we want to welcome someone from a higher education department while we talk about boner killers.
Oh, boy.
Teach.org. Brought to you by Teach and the Ad Council.
Duncan Holder, hour number 2 on a Tuesday, January 30th. If you missed hour number 1, never fear. You can go to sports1280.com, NOLA.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube page. We will have all of our podcasts and video casts of episodes that have happened yesterday and the day before and the day before. Of course, you can go check all that out. But talking a little college basketball, big news going on the lakefront. Pleased to be joined by UNO Athletic Director Derek Morrell. Derek, how are you this morning?
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm doing great, and I hope you are as well.
Absolutely. And look, we're expecting UNO to be in the tournament every year. Come on, Derek. You know, men's basketball team was in the tournament last year, leading the Southland Conference. All of a sudden, the women's program, 7-3 in conference play, have won 5 in a row. We're ramping up the expectations out there.
Well, we're excited, and before I dip my toe in that, I want to tell you guys that I want to extend my compliments on a great show, and really how much we value versatility in sports. You all know that, and for you all to cross over into the radio world, tremendous. Our compliments to you guys. Great show, and we appreciate the dedication that you all have shown to college sports in our market and across the country. That's important. So appreciate that very much, and keep up the versatility and you all doing great.
Well, thanks, Derek. That's it for the show now.
We're thrilled with how the year's gone on both sides. Our women's team has won 5 in a row, playing tremendous team basketball, unselfish. We have one of the top scorers in the nation in Randy Brown, a senior who is leading the Southland Conference in scoring. And our coaches have done a great job in keeping our ladies focused and working together and keeping everybody involved in the game plan. And we got a great win at Central Arkansas earlier this season, which we hadn't done in quite a while, and that team hadn't lost since 2015 at home. And I think we're showing a lot of signs of progress. And last year making the tournament for the first time, and this year stepping up and having a 7-3 record at this point, really turning the corner for that program. And I couldn't be more happy for them and for Coach Davenport and her team for what they've done. And of course, on the men's side, with Coach Schlesinger and his staff are remarkable. We have a great group of young men on that team who understand priorities and have focused on, coming off of a championship season. Obviously, things change. We had a number of changes to our roster this year, with seniors graduating and some young men who chose to pursue other opportunities. And when you try to blend a lot of new people together in any organization, but especially on a team with young people, it becomes one of those situations where you don't really know when it's going to come together, if it'll come together, how the chemistry will work. And a credit to our coaching staff for really working hard to keep those young men focused, to keep them working together, enjoying playing together, believing in the system, and trusting each other, which is what's led to the success we've had.
Derek, back in August, you extended Mark Schlesinger's contract. What went into that? Obviously, we know the success he had last year, but I assume there was more to it than just the wins on the basketball court, and why you all decided to have him lead your men's basketball program for the next 6 years.
Well, we really believe, and I speak when I say we, our president, Dr. John Niccolo, senior leadership on campus, and myself, really believe in Mark and his staff, and obviously success in competition has been important, and it's important to our university, and that's really our role, is how do we help promote the growth of the University of New Orleans through our efforts and through having a strong Division I program. But what Mark's done with the young men and that he's had through that program in 7 years, by teaching them values and helping to build on what they've learned from their family experiences before they come to UNO, and really putting us on track to have great graduates out of our men's basketball program when they leave here, to lead great lives, to be difference makers in the world, and to impact communities wherever they may go, is an important part of that. And we haven't wavered. I think we've done it the right way by bringing in young men who fit in with the character and the honesty and integrity that we expect out of the program, and really pushing it forward that way. And that's probably really the main reason why Mark's a great fit here, and why we believe it works. On top of that, as I'm sure you all know from talking to him, he loves the city of New Orleans, loves the university. He and his wife are rooted here, and their children, and I think we're really excited about. I know we're really excited about his commitment to us. It's a two-way street. We can want him all we want. He's got to want to be here, and I know he really wants to be here.
UNO Athletic Director Derek Morrell joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. Both the men and women, they play tomorrow night. They're playing Northwestern State. The women will be on the road at Northwestern State, and the men will be at the Lakefront Arena taking on the Demons. But I know that's obviously an important game, but I know you're looking forward to Saturday, where it's doubleheader time at the Lakefront, taking on Nicholls State. And I know on the men's side, Nicholls State right up there with UNO in the conference, and so that's one storyline. So let's start with that storyline as far as competing with Nicholls State and on Saturday when you're going to have the doubleheader.
Well, as you all know, when college basketball in our city is successful, it just helps to enhance the sports fandom in our area. And having Nicholls have a great year like they're having in Thibodeau and Coach Riley, they're doing a tremendous job with that squad there, and it makes for a great rivalry. We really felt like joining this conference when we did 5 years ago now, that natural rivalries would be born out of that with Southeastern and with Nicholls and with McNeese and obviously Northwestern State, and all of us sharing the same system of higher education helps it as well. So having Nicholls having a great year and coming in here for the doubleheader on Saturday will be great. We hope our alumni and our fans will come on out and support it. Obviously, it's an exciting weekend in the sports world with the Super Bowl on Sunday and lots of great things happening. And hopefully folks can take a break from Mardi Gras, at least early, get a chance to make some of the night parades, but come on over at 2 o'clock and catch our women's team play Nichols, and then our men's will follow at 4:15, and that'll be a really exciting game, and we're excited to see how we come out and play and how the game evolves there on Saturday. And I will tell you a nice storyline on the women's side is Nichols women's coach Doobie Plaisance, who's a native of the area in the West Bank. Her son Scott is a junior on our team, so that'll be a fun part of a storyline, I guess, going along with the doubleheader as well.
Hey, Derek, I want to ask you a little bit of a big picture athletic director question. I was talking to Troy Dannon last week at the Tulane game, and he was telling me about this new legislation that NCAA is considering about transfers, and that they might open it up a little bit for the student athlete, allow them to transfer without the 1-year penalty. I know there's going to be a little bit of addendums to that. It's not going to be just completely freewheeling, but I'm curious, as the AD at a school like UNO, how do you view that? Because I know Troy was saying for the mid-major type programs, it might be the Wild Wild West, whereas you develop a player, you mentioned Randy Brown, all of a sudden somebody could come in and try a major program, try and poach that athlete away. Do you fear that it's going to open things up and become the Wild Wild West as far as schools recruiting players off your rosters?
Well, it could, and I think it could change. It certainly will change how we recruit, and it'll change the pattern and the time frame of how everything fits together. But I do believe that it'll be an issue, and it won't be great. It won't be a great change for most of the programs who play Division I basketball. And I say that obviously the Power Five hold 65 of those programs, but the rest of us who all compete for one of those precious 68 spots in March Madness, and then obviously with the NIT as well, it'll make it much more difficult, and it'll make it difficult for our coaches to not only obviously recruit on the advanced side. I mean, recruiting starting so much earlier nowadays. You're looking at kids that are juniors, and obviously even being aware of young people that are coming onto the scene even in earlier years, and that'll change how we address that piece and what type of characteristics we look for in the individuals in our program. And I do believe it'll change how the big guys recruit, because they necessarily won't have to work as hard in advance, because they can take a look at the other programs and see which mid-major diamonds in the rough per se have come on the scene and really play well. And it's going to mean a lot to creating a great environment for our student athletes. It's going to mean a lot to providing resources for them to be successful academically and be engaged in the program. We've seen it happen in other sports where there is a one-time exception rule already in place, and maybe you get a young person who comes in and really believes in the mission of what we're trying to provide here, but realizes or grows and changes into a much better athlete than maybe was projected, and looks for other opportunities where they may have more resources to do more. And so I do think it will cause some consternation for schools like us, and really make it difficult for us to plan and for what your team may look like in years going forward, because you really don't know how that'll change year over year.
UNO Athletic Director Derek Morrell joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. Derek, one more and we will let you run. Just the overall state of the UNO athletic program. Look, I was covering when UNO seemed to be almost out the door as far as athletics, and from that point to where it seems like you guys have rebounded out at the lakefront is pretty remarkable in my eyes. Just where you guys stand as far as strength athletically, because you're seeing success with the programs, and I'm assuming that's only helping bolster the overall athletic program at UNO.
Well, it is. I couldn't be more excited about our coaches and their commitment to what we're trying to do. When we joined the Southland Conference, we knew it was a great fit for us. It was hopefully we believe it was a great fit for the Southland to have a real true presence in the city of New Orleans. But we knew that based upon the resources that we had starting over per se, that was a great league for us, and that we could come in and hopefully be successful sooner than later. And we also have to understand priorities, even though we want to make sure that all of our student athletes have equal opportunity and resources to be successful academically, understand the importance of service to our community and how that is a priority pillar for us in our program. But we also understand that we've got to commit and make our top sports great, and that's what helps to bring exposure to our university. It helps President John Niccolo and his senior leadership team promote the university and continue to grow our enrollment and to grow our presence in the market and beyond. And that's our role. I mean, our role is we have to be great, and when we're great, we help lift the overall perception and brand of the university and contribute to growth for the whole city, because you all know how much the University of New Orleans means to our great city. So that's our job. We're excited about baseball. As you know, this is a great time of year. We have Super Bowl right now, Mardi Gras in New Orleans, college baseball starting right after Mardi Gras, and we're excited about what Coach Dean has with his team this year and the kind of success that we've seen the last 2 years under his leadership and where that could go in the future. So we feel like the foundation's in place, guys, and we really believe that. I mean, of course, we could all use more, right? We all could use more help, more support from our alumni, and more resources, and that can help us be even better. But we know that our coaches are really tuned in with doing the most with what they have and appreciating the opportunities that are here, and that's what's important to us.
UNO Athletic Director Derek Morrell. Hey, Derek, appreciate the insight. Hope for continued success out there because you're right. When UNO's playing well, and it brings an added element to the sports around the city. So, Derek, appreciate the time.
Good luck, Derek. Thanks for
I'm grateful, guys. Thank you very much. Have a great week.
You got it. Okay, that's UNO Athletic Director Derek Morrell. And I'm telling you, the last time when I was doing work for the Times-Picayune, and I was the lead reporter covering UNO when it was on the verge of going away.
Right.
Coaches didn't know what was going on. The coaches were calling me wondering what I knew because they didn't know what was going on. So to come from that point, say back in 2009 to where they are now, it's a testament to what's going on out in the lakefront, that they were able to rally it together and get the right fit and get in the South. And now you're seeing success, which is great.
Yeah, and they faced unprecedented challenges. No Division I universities, along with Tulane, but Tulane's obviously a private school. Public school like UNO, the devastating effect and crippling effect on the school's enrollment and the revenue source that drives that. It's amazing where they've come, and looks like bright things ahead. I mean, they got SLES under contract now for the foreseeable future. Basketball is going to be the driver of that program, and they should be good along with the baseball program and Blake Dean for the next few years, as long as those guys are in place because of the work they've done, and the women's basketball program rebounding from where they were. A lot of people doing a lot of good work out on the lakefront.
No doubt about it, and as they do good work, we will chronicle it here on Dunc and Holder. That's why we're versatile, and we will send Derek Morrell at least $33, something like that, for his paid endorsement of Dunc and Holder.
Yeah, we may have to have that as an endorsement, like commercial. Maybe we'll send him a lock of your hair.
He will never come on our show again.
Probably
ever
right.
again.
You're right.
No.
I'll need to rethink that.
Can I rethink the whole thing of cutting my hair? Can I do that? I can't do that.
A little late.
No take backs.
I could start gluing it back, and it might
Growing
look
back
normal.
pretty darn quick.
Look, I'll be done. Like Boogie's Achilles, I'll be ready in 6 months.
You will, and then you'll make another proclamation, and we'll be back at Tracy's.
That's all right. One of our coworkers wanted us to do like a stunt where like we chopped off one of my limbs or something.
Yeah, that was a little misguided.
We can't have that. I mean, my
no,
gosh.
at least not yet.
No, not yet.
Not that desperate.
Exactly. So Super Bowl 52 opening night. We'll go through some of the shenanigans and the surliness of one former Saints wide receiver. We'll talk about some of that coming up next here. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. For Dunc and Holder.
He was good.
You need to do a column.
Your shot at $1,000 now. Text the keyword money to 200-200. You'll get a text confirming entry plus iHeartRadio. Standard data and message rates apply. That's money to 200-200.
Coming in.
International.
Oh, Calipari.
Melvin Frazier and saying, we need a swingman for 1 year.
Become
Melvin Frazier
part
like
of the WWE Hall of Fame during WrestleMania weekend.
Why has it got to be
in New
Cal?
Orleans.
Why can't it be Bill Self?
Way it works.
Why can't it be Bill Self?
Well, speaking of, did Kansas beat K-State last night? I was watching that game before I went to bed. I was going to text Herbie.
I was watching part 2 of Waco, Madman or Messiah.
Was it any good?
Sound
It was pretty
deafening?
good.
It's a documentary?
Head on
Yeah.
over to 3501
On A&E,
West
it was
Road,
2-parter.
4949 West
Ooh.
Road.
But now they've got, it's like Waco Madness. Like, they've got like a 6-part.
Madman or Messiah? I think we know the answer to that.
There were people who escaped, not like didn't like run away. Like, one of them escaped the fire, and then another guy went off and basically went to prison. And they believe he's still
The Messiah.
Yes.
And they're whack jobs.
Search and play any song instantly.
That was a crazy story. I mean, it was like a long standoff.
I forgot how long it was. It was like 50 days.
Yeah, it was like a standoff, and then finally the FBI said, we're going in or something.
They went in and then
started burning the place down.
Well, they didn't burn it.
No, the people inside.
Branch Davidians started living.
Yeah, it was crazy. That was a crazy story. People were coming in to watch the standoff, and like it was like a tourist scene or something. It was crazy.
Tons of crazy stuff happens in Waco. Not for the good.
Right.
And then I say that, and Joni's like, Fixer Upper is in Waco, and it's one of the greatest shows there are. The games, they're such lovely people, and they fix up everybody's houses.
The Route 2 redeeming people.
Yes, in Waco.
Cities around the world.
That's
4,000
funny.
experiences in all, which range from surfing trips in LA to nature photography in Nairobi to samurai sword training in Japan. The state of New York is opening an investigation into a firm that allegedly sold millions of fake followers to social media users. New York Times says the company
we've reached this point in coverage of the Super Bowl. A history of the Gronk spike.
To a host of
I mean, he spikes the ball. He's not the originator of that. It's been going on for decades. What's that all about?
NBC News Radio.
I want to thank my mommy for loving me so much, for taking me to the doctor when I broke my foot,
For leaving me alone when I wanted to be alone.
And now, as a grown-up, I'm thankful for being able to take care of you, my dear mom, for taking you to your therapies, for understanding that sometimes you simply want to be
Yeah, Zach
alone.
Lowe wrote like about 100 inches on that trade.
That's why AARP gives you
It's amazing how prolific he can
better
be.
care for your loved
All right, coming back.
Do we have to?
caregiving brought to you by
Do we have to let it linger? Do we have to?
This is Dunc and Halter on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Super Bowl opening night. From all accounts, it wasn't actually as chaotic as it has been in the past, according to reporters I follow on Twitter who were there. I was not there. Our own Josh Katzenstein was there. He will jump on the show on Wednesday to give us an update with what's going on in Minneapolis, and on Friday he will also jump on the show. And then while Jeff is up there, he will jump on, if time permits, on Friday. I don't know what Jeff's got going on. It's all craziness.
It should work out perfectly. I'm supposed to interview Thomas Morstead at 9:30 at the Media Center, and then he's got his check presentation at 1 o'clock over there at the Children's Hospital. So in between, it's perfect window.
Perfect window. So we'll be talking with you about what you're seeing and what Thomas is going on over there, and of course the Hall of Fame. You vote on that on Saturday, and then Jeff will join us again on Sunday after Eagles Patriots. Yeah, by the way, the Eagles and Patriots are actually playing in this game. If
That's
you
right.
Forgot,
There's a football game.
If you forgot.
Well, the media night has totally transformed over the last decade.
You've got a story about this that I think you wanted to
yeah,
relay.
I wanted to bring this up. William Martin, a Saints historian, emailed me about it. I thought this was interesting. He said that really the wackiness for the media day, you know, with all the crazy celebrities and the stuff. William Martin. I'm an idiot. William Taylor sent this to me. And he said that it all started actually in Super Bowl IX in New Orleans when the Rams were here. And he says at the time Dick Schaap was doing his outstanding work as a sports writer and thought it would be interesting if some active NFL players tried to be reporters. So he hired the Rams' Fred Dreyer and Lance Rensel to serve in the capacity at Media Day. Dreyer and Rensel decided on their own to totally turn this into a slapstick comedy. They dressed like 1950s sports writers, wearing trench coats and fedora hats, and asked at times overly simplistic questions to members. I'm sorry, it was the Steelers and Vikings in that game, while talking like actor Jack Lemmon when he played a newspaper writer named Peter Warner in the movie You Can't Run Away From It. So this was the first time that, you know, this craziness that just weren't regular reporters, but it dates all the way back to 1975 and Super Bowl IX. I didn't know it would have gone back that far, that media day started having kind of a zany period. That seemed like that would be weird in 75.
That would be bizarre.
Everybody would have been straight-laced and by the book. Instead, back then, the media day kind of gradually evolved from that point into the kind of circus it is now.
And yes,
started in New Orleans.
So it's
shocking.
I'm stunned. The
crazy.
circus started here, of course. Yeah, I'm totally stunned. But this is a time when you start to see a lot of stories come out about, say, like our own Josh Katzenstein. He caught up last night with Brandon Cooks, and he caught up last night with Darren Sproles. Of course, you're looking. Cooksy and Sprolesy. I mean, you had to.
The two Breeze nicknames.
Exactly. But controversy number one, Cooks does not even acknowledge Cooksy. He only acknowledges Cookie.
Where did you hear that?
Well, he had a little interview with Michael Irvin, and they just referred to Cookie, and he says he's had that nickname for years, that people just call him Cookie. So he just totally disowned Cooksy, like it never existed.
I think he's right on that. Cooksy sounds silly.
So
Cookie sounds better. I like Cookie.
So you're basically saying Drew Brees is bad at nicknames.
Drew Brees should have known his own teammate well enough to know his nickname was already in place and called him by that. I'm surprised he didn't. You know, one thing I learned from Peyton Manning was an expert at knowing every player on the team, where they went to college, all these little intricate details. I'm surprised Brees didn't know that. Maybe he did and called him that to his face, but to us he always called him Cooksy.
I bet you just called him Cooksy because it goes back to Sprolesy and Gramsy. That's all he does.
That's true. You're probably right.
He just puts a Y or an I at the end of someone's name.
But Brady immediately started calling him Cookie. So Brady somehow knew that, and Drew didn't.
You know what? One interesting tidbit. You say that, and then I asked Peyton Manning at a Super Bowl, and his teammate was Chris Clark, and I asked, and he was the left tackle filling in, and me and him were the only people who knew, and this is like the big ballroom question. I asked him about Chris Clark, and he says, "That's right, he's a good Ron Eagle."
Yep.
Because he went to McDonough 35.
Yeah, Peyton Manning knew all that stuff.
He was Ron Eagle, absolutely, so he knew that.
When I was doing a story on Leonard Fournette back when he was at St. Aug, Ben Hockman, our former colleague, was at the Denver Post and went up to ask a question of Peyton Manning about Leonard Fournette, just ask him if he knew who he was. And he said, "Do I know who he was? I watched the whole game against John Curtis the other night on ESPN." He watched the whole St. Aug John Curtis game. That's a true New Orleanian.
Well, I'll just say this. Let's hear what Brandon Cooks had to say. I'm just going to say he's not a true New Orleanian. I'm just gonna go out there because here's what Brandon Cooks had to say on his first season with the Patriots, and a reflection, well, not really, on his time with the Saints.
It's a blessing. I mean, this is what you dream of, and had this opportunity. You know, I'm very thankful.
How was the first season in New England for you?
It was good so far. It's not over yet, so looking forward to what's to come next in this next couple of days.
Brandon, there's always an aura of excellence that's associated with the organization you joined. Since joining the Patriots, what are some of the things that have stood out to you as a part of the team?
And I would just have to say how organized it is and how everyone plays for each other. You know, I think Coach does a great job on preaching, doing our job, doing it the best we can, putting us in those best positions. And so seeing that as a player, being here, witnessing it firsthand, is awesome.
Was there anything you missed about New Orleans or the Saints?
You know, that's not what my mind is right now. My mind is, you know, being in this and in the moment.
When the trade happened, though, is this what you first envisioned? You know, the Super Bowl, just given the Patriots.
I mean,
history?
as a player, that's what you hope for. Let alone you come into an organization that's known for going. But the first thing that popped in my head was really just how blessed I was being a part of an organization like this.
What do you think of how you performed so far this season?
So it's okay. It's all right.
What could you have done better?
And that's not the time to talk about that. I'll reflect during the after the season, but right now, you know, I'm just focused on getting ready for this game.
Cooksy, surly, same guy.
I wouldn't call him surly.
He's surly.
That's not surly.
He's surly.
He's just trying to stay focused on the task at hand.
Josh should have asked him about Michael Thomas and how well he was, and if he was jealous that Michael Thomas was a Pro Bowler and Cooks wasn't. That's what he should have asked.
And he would have said the same thing.
I'm not here to talk about that.
It's part of the past.
All I know is I'm not going to get over the fact that Brandon Cooks won. He beat the Saints.
How's that?
He wanted out. He not only did he get out, he went to the Patriots. And he's their best receiver, I would say, wide receiver, because Julian Edelman's out. He's their best wide receiver. Not only did he force his way out because he was pouting, goes to a better situation with the best quarterback to ever play the game. Now he's in a Super Bowl. He won. I understand the Saints got Ryan Ramczyk, and that is a major plus, but he won. He forced his way out to a better situation. I still think it's a bad look for the Saints.
What do you think?
I still think it is.
What do you think is going to happen with him in New England, though? Do you think he's going to get a deal? I don't know if he will. I don't know if they'll pay him.
I think it depends on where they think they are with, say, Julian Edelman, because he's going to come back next year, and, say, Danny Amendola, because you can't live, obviously Cooks is younger than those two guys. And so where do you go from there? I mean, do you let him walk and then just try to find yourself some Amendolas and some Chris Hogans and some random people? Or
that's kind of how they've done it, though.
I understand that.
They haven't really invested much in those positions. I think Gronk, and otherwise you don't see them going out and signing. They get the Randy Moss at the end of the second contract guy. That's what they do.
Well, they're still in the midst of the first one. But let's hear what Brandon Cooks has to say on his chemistry and about Bill Belichick.
I think it's been a growing process in a good way from the day we met in off-season workouts to now. We're still growing and feel like we got a lot of room to grow left.
And another thing people don't talk about, I love Sean Payton as a coach. I think he's a great coach. And Bill Belichick is just the greatest coach to ever put their name coach around him. Talk to me about Belichick.
Coach Belichick, you talk about a guy that is doing it at a high level for so long, but let alone he don't take it for granted. He prepares every year like it's his last. You got a lot of respect for him, a guy that you pay attention to and can bring a team together.
And that was Michael Irvin, so that was via the NFL Network. But all of it's live domain because every media person's there. So that was Michael Irvin asking the Sean Payton. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to put in that soundbite, because he's basically asking him to compare. Well, not necessarily.
Yeah, he didn't ask
him to compare. But I'm sure any player would say at his current coach, "Oh, I love him. He's not going to rip Sean Payton.
He's not going to say anything bad about
He's probably
either
saying
of these guys.
Actually, Sean Payton, thank you. I was able to go to a Super Bowl, and you guys are out of the playoffs."
I mean, when's the last time at one of these NFL Super Bowl media nights or events anybody said anything that's controversial or anything? I mean, it's always just a bunch of canned answers like this.
The last time I could think of something was when Cam Newton left after the game. That's probably it.
But not the media.
Not the opening. Well, Marshawn Lynch, that fiasco.
Right.
I had to cover that with you.
He didn't say anything, did he?
No, he just hid, and everyone just stood there and watched him hiding.
That's what I'm saying. When did anybody say anything of relevance? It's always a bunch of this, just kind of getting through the night, the players going through the motions, giving canned answers, rote answers, and media trying to get something out of it. It's the worst place in the world to do an interview.
Well, why don't we take a break right here, because I think we do have some relevant topics here. Malcolm Jenkins, got a couple of sound bites from him. Actually, a very relevant soundbite from Nick Foles, and it's about basically how he was ready to give up on football and had to basically be coerced back, and now he's at this spot. So actually a good one. And the most relevant question I found of Media Night, who's Tom Brady's man crush? That's the most relevant topic.
Was it Jimmy Garoppolo?
It was not Jimmy Garoppolo.
Ooh, I'm eager to find out who it is.
I'm just going to love who it's not. You'll see the answer.
Okay.
Come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Duncan Holder.
So Notre Dame hired Terry Joseph, who I think is the brother of
Your forecast on Sports
Vance. No, what's the coach at LSU.
This report is brought to you by Go Insurance. Call 504-254-3000.
I think they're brothers.
Happy Tuesday
Now they'd
from
be
the Fox 8 Weather
Crees.
Center.
like all
I'm
the
meteorologist
Josephs are
Shelby
related.
Latino.
They're all
A
like
sunny and
Shaw.
cooler day
Yeah.
is on tap, with temperatures only getting into
it's
the low
great.
50s
Tom Brady,
this
man
afternoon.
crush, he says.
With clear skies
Guess it's
tonight,
gotta
we'll
be,
drop those temperatures once
Edelman
again.
and
And
Amendola
tomorrow
and
morning,
Gronk.
you could be waking up near the freezing
Not
mark on the North
Cookie.
Shore
Cookie.
and in the
Oh.
upper 30s on the South Shore. From the Fox 8 Weather Center,
Yeah.
I'm meteorologist
He's only
Shelby
been with them a
Latino.
year.
I don't
Have
care.
a great day.
Anything, any way to
go out of customers
rip
after
that
they've saved
turd.
hundreds on their car insurance. It makes my day.
Such
Go
a
out of
surly
cars
little
to make sure
punk.
you don't
I didn't think
overpay
he
for
was
your
that
car
bad.
insurance.
He's no, he like
504
acts like he
3000 for a
tries.
fast free
No,
quote. Or
no.
go online
He's
to
a phony.
GoAutoInsurance.com and start saving money immediately.
He's a phone.
I met someone. You hear it a lot from people on Match because more
talk to
people
him
have met
enough.
their
He'll be
someone
like
on Match than
snarky
any other
and then
dating
he
app.
won't.
Everyone wants to find that meaningful connection.
No,
And Match
he was
is
a
not only
pain.
number one in
Just for
first,
him.
but second dates
Oh, he
too. Now
coached
here's
it
a free
just for
offer
him.
for our listeners. Go to Match.com/single for
course he's a
7 days free. That's 7 days
And just
completely
bitter.
free to
Like when
search,
Michael
view
Thomas
photos,
got here,
and connect.
boy,
This free offer is
bitter.
found at Match.com/single.
Because all the stories we were
That's
talking
About Mike T.
and then one of them is like,
Match.com/single.
"Are you going to ask me about Michael Thomas?" Like that's what he started.
Oh, he said that?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
ESPN reporting LA's agreeing to trade Griffin to the Pistons in a 6-player
That's why
swap,
it's like,
including
man,
Tobias Harris and
Cooks
Avery Bradley from
was
Detroit.
acting that way,
Draft picks
and
also involved.
they don't
Griffin
ship him
signed
to
a 5-year deal
Cleveland, they
for
ship him to the
170
Patriots.
mil this offseason. Super Bowl week is officially underway. Kicked
So
off with
he
Super Bowl
won.
opening night on Monday at Excel Energy Center in St. Paul. The Patriots and Eagles.
And he's
took
still
part in the
gonna,
circus
look, if the
formerly
Patriots
known
don't
as
want him, he's
Media
gonna get
Day.
cashed
get
in.
paid?
Tom Brady.
This could never get old.
What kind of year do you
This is,
have?
pretty amazing. It's gotten
He
bigger
was
every
1,000
year.
yards.
So I remember when it just be standing on the field, for
I got it right
45
here.
minutes. But now look at this. It's a big event.
Cooks.
Brady and Pats head coach Bill Belichick.
1,082
again
yards,
today.
7
The Mall of
touchdowns,
America, the
11th
Eagles will
in the league
follow.
in
With
receiving
Major League
yards. He
Baseball
only had
spring
65
training now
catches.
just 2 weeks away.
Averaged
Wahoo is
16.6
planning for
yards.
retirement. The Indians say their controversial
Gronk
Indian
finished 2
logo
yards
will be
ahead of him.
removed from team uniforms
So
starting
it was
in
Gronk and
2019.
Cooks, 10 and
Sports,
11.
Jake Gorwood, NBC News Radio.
To buy your home, you
I think it's a real hard game to pick. I
Learn
don't know.
about loans, scoured
What's the
neighborhoods,
spread?
and ask the right questions.
I think it's
If
5.
you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track.
Right,
Visiting
5 points.
aceyourretirement.org can help. Brought to
Because
you
I don't
by
think New
AARP
England's
and the Ad
as good as people like see. New
4.5 now. It's gone down.
This is where you talk to home teams. Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Welcome back. Couple more segments here. Let's hear from Malcolm Jenkins, of course, former Saints safety, and leaves the Saints, goes on to bigger and better things with the Eagles, even though he did win a Super Bowl with the Saints in his rookie year, but still making Pro Bowls with the Eagles. And Jeff, we were talking about in the break about how this is a more challenging game to pick than you think. Because look, Nick Foles is playing well. The Eagles defense, after a little sluggish end of the season, obviously playing better.
Mm-hmm.
Played well against Atlanta, certainly played well against the Vikings. And it's not like New England is impervious to a defeat. I don't think they're this juggernaut that people imagine with the Patriots. But like Malcolm Jenkins asked a couple questions. We'll play some of this. One of them is, how are the Eagles dealing with being underdogs?
Everybody's just starting to label us underdogs since we got in the postseason, but to be honest, we felt like underdogs our entire lives and all season. Most of the guys who've come here have been cut, traded, or drafted too low, and everybody's had a chip on their shoulders, and really we've been, given the short end of the stick the entire year, but we've stuck together, we believed in the guys next to us, and continue to rack up wins.
And now let's hear from Malcolm Jenkins. And part of the reason why people see him as underdogs is they don't have Carson Wentz. Let's hear what Malcolm Jenkins has to say on dealing with the loss of Carson Wentz.
Well, we were playing the Rams and we're trying to win the NFC East. Carson goes down, Nick steps in, we win that game. And in the locker room, I wanted to just tell the team, don't let anybody come in here and change your mind about who you are. All year we've lost guys. All year we've stepped up and answered the bell. All year we stayed together and believed in ourselves. And now that Carson is going down, it doesn't change anything. It sucks. We love Carson, and for him as a player, the year that he was having, that was terrible. But all our goals and dreams are right in front of us, and I wanted to make sure that we understood that before the media came in and started, trying to plant seeds of doubt.
How much do you miss Malcolm Jenkins? My gosh.
He's the best, isn't he?
Yes.
Good thing they got rid of him.
And got Jarris Bird.
Yeah, that was a good move. Really smooth move there.
They could have. I remember talking with Malcolm Jenkins right after he signed with the Eagles. I got him on the phone that afternoon, the opening of free agency, and he said the Saints didn't even offer me. They were just ready to move on. It was over.
And I think if you asked them right now, they would tell you honestly it was a huge mistake. Matter of fact, I know they would, because it was a huge mistake. They didn't value all the intangibles that Jenkins brought, but I think they also looked at him on the field, and he had kind of a down year that year before. But whose fault is that? That's not necessarily his fault. I mean, he's clearly a talented player that they didn't get enough out of, and that went on for a long time there during that interim period where the Saints defense was so atrocious. It wasn't necessarily the Saints didn't have talent. They weren't being utilized properly.
Right. You remember it was after the 2013 season when they moved on from Malcolm Jenkins. And I remember that 2012 season and going into that offseason right when Sean Payton came back. And I know Sean Payton had a heated exchange behind the scenes in Mobile at the Senior Bowl with Steve Spagnuolo. I don't know how public this has ever been, but he had a heated exchange with him because Spagnuolo was ready to run Roman Harper out of town. He was ready to run Malcolm Jenkins out of town. And Sean Payton said, listen, we want a Super Bowl with these guys. And you're on here in 1 year, and all of a sudden they're the problem, even though the defense overall was terrible. And after that meeting, adios, Spags. Fired him. See you later.
But then they ran all those guys out of town.
And then they ran them all out later. So it's funny how things change. And look, the whole Jarris Bird, Malcolm Jenkins, that's the same offseason they traded Darren Sproles away. You can point to all that, and that was the downfall of this team. Combine all those moves and making other bad moves and poor draft picks and this, that, and the other. You add it all up, and that's how it's taken the Saints that long to climb back from the start of all the comedy of errors that happened.
You know, looking back at some of those drafts, and I'm writing a column about this. You got Patrick Robinson, first rounder in 2010, Malcolm Jenkins, first rounder 2009. And then they hit on Cam Jordan and Mark Ingram in 11. The next year they get Akeem Hicks in the third round, Corey White, who played for a number of years, in the fifth round, and Andrew Tiller. Now he's a guard, but he's bounced around the league and still been playing for a while. None of those guys ended up contributing much to the Saints. So as a Saints fan, you have to wonder, I mean, it's not like these players were complete busts like, say, a Stanley Jean-Baptiste, who couldn't play in the league. They have guys that they drafted that have turned out to be decent players for other teams. And that's a little bit of a, I think, black mark on that tenure, that they didn't get those players to produce as much for the Saints. Obviously, Jenkins helped win a Super Bowl, but Patrick Robinson never really blossomed here.
No, he did not.
Didn't have any confidence when he played here.
No, he didn't. And the 2012 season completely marred him because that's when everyone threw at him. I think he, at that point in time, I forget which statistical site it was, that maybe he had surrendered the most passing yards by any corner in a single season in NFL history. It was something absurd that happened. And, yeah, that whole thing was a disaster as far as the 2012 season. Obviously, maybe things could have been different if Sean Payton would have been around.
It wasn't a great draft. I mean, you look back, the players picked around Patrick Robinson at the end of the first round. Dolphins took Jared Odrick at 28. Jets took Kyle Wilson, who ended up with the Saints, at 29. Detroit Lions took Javid Best. I don't even know if he made it in the league. The Colts at 31 took Jerry Hughes. And then the Saints took Patrick Robinson. Jerry Hughes turned out to be a good player for the Bills. And then after that, Roger Saffold went to the Rams. The Vikings took Chris Cook, who ended up with the Saints for a while. The Bucks took Brian Price. I mean, there was no huge misses there. Matter of fact, you could make an argument that Patrick Robinson was better than a lot of those guys, except for maybe Jerry Hughes. Just a point I'm trying to make here.
Sucking up for Patrick Robinson.
Well,
don't be so hard on P-Rob.
No, not P-Rob as much as the selection of P-Rob. The Saints got grilled, and that's one of the people they bring up, and he's turned into a productive player in the NFL.
He survived. He's bounced around some teams, and now he had a
pick six in the NFC Championship
exactly.
game. Turned the game around.
P-Rob.
Yeah, I mean, like at that time, he was certainly a better corner than Chris Cook or Cal Wilson. He's turned out to be better than all those guys. It wasn't a great year for corners. The only corner taken above P-Rob in the whole draft was Joe Hayden by the Browns at number 7. Otherwise, there was a long stretch where there were no corners. I'm sorry, Kareem Jackson went to the Texans at 20.
Obviously, he's a good player. But, yeah, he wasn't around at 32. So, yeah.
Not a great draft.
No, absolutely not. So, all right, why don't we take a break right here on the show. When we get back, we'll hear from Nick Foles. Malcolm Jenkins talking about losing Carson Wentz. Nick Foles, I didn't even know this story, so it's an interesting story he tells while talking with Kurt Warner. We'll also hear the best topic of the day. Tom Brady, who's his man crush? And I'm all about who's not his man crush, who's not mentioned in this group. That's what I'm all about.
Man,
and
you're on a roll.
Let's call for the key word. 504-260-1280. If you're listening to end of the first hour, ask for a keyword, handed it out. If you know the keyword, you can win a pair of Pelicans Jazz tickets February 5th in the Smoothie King Center. So we're calling for the keyword. So give Dave a call, 504-260-1280. You know the keyword, you win the tickets. So come on back. One more segment here. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeart Radio app. Duncan Holder.
A real weird draft. So, like, there was
10 draft.
Antonio Brown went in the 6th round. Best receiver in the league. Greg Hardy in the 6th round. Cam Chancellor in the 5th. Geno Atkins in the 4th. I mean, like some real studs came out later. Navarro Bowman, Jimmy Graham, Everson Griffin in the 3rd and 4th. Golden Tate.
New Orleans.
I'll go, the top wasn't bad. Sue, and Dunc of Sue, Gerald McCoy, Trent Williams, Eric Berry. Those are all really good players. CJ Spiller.
Open Monday
Number 9.
through Saturday
Spillsy.
from 11 a.m.
Spillsy went number 9.
Two locations to serve. In Bucktown at 1001
Ryan Matthews. Just not a lot of good running backs.
Or in Kenner at
Yeah, that was a good draft.
Yeah, it was good at the top.
Timothy
Timo.
What happens is it dropped off like right around here.
Right around Tebow.
Yeah. Dan Williams. McCourtry ended up being good.
McCourty's good.
But like Jared Odrick, Kyle Wilson, Chubby Best. I know the Saints were high on Odrick. Remember that. Dexter McClusker wasn't that good. T.J. Ward. Gronk went. Patriots got McCourty and Gronk. And they were drafted pretty low.
Didn't they draft Aaron Hernandez in that draft?
Yep. Giants took Linval Joseph.
Now he's a Pro Bowler for the Lions.
Yeah.
I needed a $2,500
Yeah, who did the Patriots
loan
get in that
to cover
draft?
some
Let's see.
expenses, so I went to the A-team at Avant.com.
Oh, shit.
Applying was easy,
Sorry.
and I was
Another
more
cursing.
Promo
Another
code
curse.
Radio. Avant.com.
So they
promo
took,
code Radio. Credit products are made by WebBank. Other restrictions apply. See website.
All right, 15 seconds, and congrats to Bruce.
Because you don't have to be perfect.
Just the only other one was
Teens in foster care will love
Hernandez.
you just the same.
For more information,
Excuse me. Oh, wait.
A message
Brandon
from the US
Diedrich.
Department of Health and Human Services.
Yes! Naked fighter in the
Zoltan
Saints locker
Mesko,
room.
the punter.
Oh, gosh.
Duncan Holder now. Eric Asher next at noon on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Are we allowed to say that the original band name of this song was Green Jello, and then they got
Yes, you
trouble, and then they had to call themselves Green Jelly?
That's exactly what happened, and yeah.
We could do what we want. We'll do what we want.
Yeah.
We'll be
We just
Jeff.
did.
Jello's
We'll be
not the
Jeff
boss of
Cartman.
us.
We'll do what we want.
Respect my authority.
Exactly. Congrats to Bruce, winner of the Pelicans tickets, taking on the Jazz February 5th. Now, look, last segment we had Malcolm Jenkins talking about dealing with losing Carson Wentz. And, of course, it certainly didn't look great the last couple of games for the Eagles, hence why they were underdogs throughout the entire playoffs. But Nick Foles looked like a stud in the NFC Championship game, and they're going to need a stud performance from him at U.S. Bank Stadium. But no, Interesting 2-minute little interview he had with Kurt Warner in last night's opening night. I didn't realize this. Basically, Nick Foles was ready to quit football. Didn't think he had it anymore. And let's just hear what Nick Foles had to say with Kurt Warner. Interesting, and you could see why he's actually in the league and playing pretty well heading into the Super Bowl.
What does that mean to lose your love for the game?
I think just losing the love of the game is, we know what it is like to love this game of football. And to wake up and not want to throw the football, and just, for me, it was going through experiences, going through things, and just to where I woke up and I just didn't have that joy, and it was scary for me. Growing up in Texas, I always played football since I was a kid. Just, it was tough, but going through it was the greatest thing in the world. Good Lord showed me a lot of things I had to deal with emotionally, but at the same time, I'm a better person, better player because of it, and I wouldn't change a thing. And I'm, being in this moment, you really get to soak it all in, take it all in, and be grateful. But at the same time, know you have a responsibility come game day to go out there and do everything you can for your teammates to help them win the game.
So was there a moment? Was there something somebody said, or something where you realized, no, I'm not ready to give it up. I want to go back and play?
I think when I became a free agent, I guess when I was released by the Rams, I had a couple of days just to sort of reflect and just take a breath. And the whole time my family was behind me, always supporting me. My wife Tori was there, my dad, her parents, my mom, everyone was there. And I got to step away from the game for a little bit and just take a breath. I went on a camping trip with my brother-in-law Ryan, and we just had a good time. Didn't think about football, took a breath, came back, and I remember just sitting there talking to Tori. And in that moment, it was tough because I knew she wanted me to keep playing because she knew that I wasn't finished and that I still had the gifts and abilities to go out there and play and be a leader and all those things, and she didn't want to see that. And she knew I was hurting inside, and at that moment I said a prayer to God just to guide me, and in that moment I realized I just needed to take a step of faith. And in that moment, I called Coach Reed because we had been talking, and I knew that for me to have the biggest growth as a person at that moment was to take that step and call him and go play the game of football. And I ended up signing with Kansas City, playing for him for that year. And the fourth day of training camp, that morning I woke up and the joy had come back and the emotions were unreal. I was journaling at that point. I haven't even had a chance to go back and look at what I went through, but I feel like we as people, we go through that, but we're afraid to talk about it. And I'm not afraid to talk about it because I wouldn't be the person I am today. I wouldn't, I'm a father now, so I can share all this with my daughter when she grows up. And it makes this moment even more surreal because every moment I get to play this game is a gift.
I think that's a pretty awesome story from Nick Foles. Sounded like he was down and out, ready to give it up. And now he's at the Super Bowl, starting quarterback.
Little trivia for you, too. He is played at the same high school as the Saints' Drew Brees, Austin Westlake. And now when he makes this start in the Super Bowl, we'll give Westlake 2 quarterbacks that have started in the Super Bowl. Only one other school has ever had 2 starting quarterbacks in the Super Bowl.
Was it Jesuit?
No.
Rummel?
No.
Evangel?
Newman High School.
Newman. Of course. I knew it was local. I figured it was a Jesuit or Rummel.
I had to cut you off because you were going to go through the entire rotisserie there.
I would have come up to Newman, obviously, with the Mannings. But, yeah, look, I think that's a great story. If you want a reason, a guy to root for, heck, why not Nick Foles? Why not?
Yeah, he's impressive, isn't he? You can see why so many players have gravitated to him and got behind him. What a great situation they've got at quarterback. When you got a guy like that backing up Carson Wentz, it just shows you how important it is to have somebody that's capable so your season is not completely derailed by that injury.
And I know he's been asked many times before, well, what's going to happen next year? Even if you win the Super Bowl, you are going to be the backup next year.
Right.
And I think he just takes it in stride. And look, if he wins the Super Bowl, Philly fan, they'll love Carson Wentz, but they will love Nick Foles. There's no doubt about it. But speaking of love.
Where are the teas?
The most important minute and a half of discussion we probably have left in the show. The most important question of last night. He even says this in the soundbite. Who is Tom Brady's man crush?
Man crush? These are tough questions. Who's my man crush? Man. Yeah, I'll say Jules and Danny and Gronk. These guys are pretty guys. None of them are married either. Can you imagine that? Justin Timberlake, I like Justin a lot too.
Do you follow his music? Do you like his new album?
I love Justin. Justin's very talented. Yeah, he's a great performer. So very, very happy he's doing this Super Bowl.
That's what it's all about. The hard-hitting questions. You know who's not on the list? Boy, he says Julian Edelman, wide receiver for the Patriots. Danny Amendola, wide receiver for the Patriots. Tight end, Rob Gronkowski, obviously likes to throw the football to him. Who did he leave off the list?
Oh, that's not fair.
Well, Drew Brees is not a New England Patriot, and maybe he's jealous of Drew Brees. One, Brandon Cookie.
He's
not
only been with them a year.
The list.
He's been with them 1 year. Those other guys have been with them multiple years, 5 or 6 years.
He completed 65 passes for 1,082 yards and 7 touchdowns and gave him a deep threat, but no man crush on Cooksey. None.
Unfair.
Zero.
That's unfair judgment.
Nothing.
I thought it was much more interesting that he picked out Justin Timberlake.
That's obvious. That's like picking like Brad Pitt or somebody,
I
or like
thought that was
Denzel Washington. Of course,
I know one guy
all
I didn't
people
pick, and that's the WEEI radio host who trashed his daughter.
He did say that he hopes the guy does not lose his job for that.
And I respected him for that, because I agree.
That is.
I mean, the guy made a mistake. It was actually, I shouldn't say he trashed his daughter. He didn't trash her. He made a mistake in word use. And
well, you don't need to be disparaging about a 5-year-old.
Right.
Come
no,
on.
I'm not defending him. I'm just saying, like, he doesn't need to lose his job.
No,
Suspend
suspended.
him.
He's suspended. Let him come back.
Right.
Now, if Tom Brady wants to leave, well, and they lose money, it might be a problem. So, want to thank UNO Athletic Director Derek Morrell. Want to thank WVUE TV's Juan Kincaid. Jeff, you're flying the coop, my friend.
Yes, I'll be back, though.
Enjoy the Super Bowl. Do a great job. Get the people in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We got a great guest list the rest of the week. I'm going to just leave it at that. I'm excited about what we got.
Back, Jeff.
Exactly. Bring something back, Jeff. All right. Eric Asher coming up next. So we will talk with you tomorrow. Sports 1280 NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Duncan Holder.
A British
Hello, Julie.
Bring me back something nice, Jeffrey.
No.
No,